excitement is everything. I'm Mitch, and this is Mitch Reviews Everything, and today I will be reviewing Falconer, the Sceptre of Deception from 2003, their third studio album, and boy is this one different. This album is the first album where they had to transition into a new lead vocalist. They went from Matthias Blad, who performed on their first two CDs, to going with a man named Christopher Goebel. And they did that apparently because Matthias, he had some scheduling conflicts. He just couldn't continue with the band. And I think at the time they were thinking about taking it from a strictly studio album to doing some live shows, so they had to switch their lead singer out. I will say that, you know, you look back on things, would I like to see Matthias have remained the lead singer for Falconer? Goebel was... Would I like to see him remain the singer? Yeah, I would have, but I will say I liked Goebel, who performed on this album in their fourth album, Grind vs. Grandeur. And I think Grind vs. Grandeur would have been completely different, but that's a story for my next video about Falconer. But, yeah, I think he performed sufficiently, and I actually really, really love this album. Sceptre Deception is awesome. Now, their sound definitely did change. This album is definitely a lot faster than their first two. It's very fast, and Goebel, his vocals remind me of maybe, let's say, Dragon Force, and let's say this is kind of, maybe not, maybe to me, Blind Guardian, but definitely Dragon Force kind of sounding. And Goebel also performed with Destiny, the band Destiny, for 2 albums. So, you know, he's a pretty well-known singer, vocalist, and he definitely changed the sound of Falconer. So this CD sounds completely different than their last two. It has more of that, like, drawn-out, like, not even going to attempt it, just listen to it as, like, drawn-out, like, notes and stuff like that. You know, but this is a good album. And the other thing about this album, it's a concept album. It details the events of one of Sweden's kings. I might misslaughter this, but I think it's King Birger, who was on the throne from 1290 to 1318. I read online, and it details him coming to become the king. So this is a concept album about him rising up from childhood and becoming king. And basically, a brief overview, because I don't know the history well enough to give you any more than this. His father was sick and dying, but all his sons were still children, and apparently they were in a electoral type of monarchy. And to secure his family on the throne, he announces that his small son is still going to be king, and he puts his one of his right-hand man to watch over his son and lead the kingdom until his son's old enough. So but there's a lot of backstabbing and blah, 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 and, like, trying to, you know, vie for power of the throne. And again, I don't know enough of the history about King Birger and all that to give you any more, but in the booklet of Falconer, it's very nice to actually give you a brief synopsis of what the history of it, and, you know, that history is basically what the album's about. So each song chronicles a little detail of the history of King Birger eventually rise to the throne. So this is a really good album. Like I said, it's a lot faster. Goebel's vocals are just completely different. But I really, really like this album. I definitely think you can check it out. You can check it out anywhere. And this album also, just go over a few of the songs. The Coronation, just a fantastic song. Like, this CD is so great. It really is. Like, I would say almost every track on this CD is just so catchy. And I would detail more on that, but I think you should just please listen to it. I'm basically teasing it, hoping that you listen to this album by not giving you too much in my review, other than telling you how awesome I think it is. Now, I'm going to get into some other things with this album. It's 10 tracks, but the Japanese version of this CD, they actually released a bonus track like they did with the other previous two. The Japanese version of this CD had a 11th song called The Gate. So if you're lucky enough to have the Japanese version, you got that song. or if you can pick that up. I unfortunately do not own the Japanese version of the CD, so I don't have the version as the gate. It is in English. The lyrics are in English, so that's nice. So that's really good. It's a pretty good song. I understand why they left it off. It actually has nothing to do with the rest of the album, so it's definitely like a bonus track in the truest sense, because it doesn't, include any of the story at all. But that's awesome. Little personal notes on this CD. This was the first Falconer CD I ever listened to. It's the first one I purchased, and I have never looked back. So this album is very special to me personally, because I actually listened to this one before the first two. I bought this in 2003, right after it had come out. Here's a small tidbit story. I actually had seen in the CD store, movie store, FYE, the first Falconer CD sitting on the shelf like a couple weeks before. I picked it up. I was like, oh, this looks so awesome, and blah, blah, blah. But I put it back because at the time CDs cost like $20. It was like $20 or whatever, and at the time I was what? I don't know. This is back in 2003. It's like 14, I don't know. Whatever. I can't do math. But anyway, I ended up putting it back, and a few weeks later I go in and I see that they had a new release of Sceptre Deception sitting there, and it was on sale because it was new. So this is why I purchased this album first, and how I got it, because it was on sale because it had just come out. And I actually listened to this album so much that I actually put off listening to the first two albums. Even though I bought them, they sat there because I was so hooked on the Sceptre Deception, because this CD still to this day is just amazing, and almost all Falconer CDs are my favorite. I'll get more into that as we move forward with my review of Falconer CDs, but that's pretty much all I have for you. That was just some personal stories I wanted to share. So Falconer, the Sceptre Deception, please check it out. This also has the title song, The Sceptre Deception, which is an 8-minute long chronicle that I love that song. So just please, check that out. As for me and all the other Falconites out there, I'm Mitch. This has been Mitch Reviews Everything. Falconer's awesome. Check them out. I'll see you again.